Welcome back to the Culture Based Podcast. I'm Dustin. He's Blake. We've reached the end of March and we're here with episode 37. Today we're going to talk about connecting the team. Connecting the team. Before we get into that, I want to remind you that we're here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and build a scalable team to get them there. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform, we'd love for you to rate and review that wherever you're listening to that. It helps us get this content out even further to those like you who could benefit from it. If you're watching on YouTube, hello there. We're so glad that you're here. We would love for you to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those fun YouTube habits that we've built up with all of our favorite channels. Also want to remind you that we're on this. No, I was going to say the social media. I stopped myself because
make fun of me for saying a coffee.
Because I've been ridiculed about putting the in front of things.
I like it.
It started as a joke, but then it's like, now it's like, it's just, one of those things that you're so used to saying it, now you just say it.
Yep.
I think they call that a habit. Anyway, social media, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook at The Culture Base, BASE, or you can find us online at theculturebase.com. If you're interested in scheduling a free 30-minute strategy session with us to talk about any of the things that we've been talking about in these episodes, help scale your team, you can go to theculturebase.com/strategy and hop on our calendar. So let's dive right into today's episode. So today, like I said, we're talking about connecting the team. You finally done it, Blake. Congratulations. I just want to take a minute, celebrate you. You hired the team you always dreamed of. And his mind goes, no, I haven't. But how do you keep them? Part of creating an ideal culture to scale your team and business is making sure that your team connects in the right ways. Today, let's get into connecting the team and how to best scale your dream. I want to say this right up front, because I think a lot of leaders and business owners, managers, what have you, that listen to this are going to go, okay, this is the fluff that I was talking about with the team culture thing, and this is why I'm so resistant to it. I just want to throw this up there for you real quick. This is right out the gate, coming out hot. All right, listen, the more that you're around others, could be your team, could be your family, could be, it doesn't matter. Pick the group of people. The more that you're around others, the more that you empathize with them. Right? You begin to learn their struggles, their wins, their personality. And the more that you empathize with them, the greater your impact is together. So why would you not want that for your team? I'm not a great salesman, but I feel like that's the best sales tactic here with culture is why would you not want the greatest impact with your team? Why be in business if you don't want to scale this thing, if you don't want to grow it, if you don't, if you're just comfortable kind of just like suffering through life, this is not the show for you.
And you can't have influence without presence.
That's right.
Like, you can't have that. And you can't just say like John Maxwell's whole 5 levels of leadership, the lowest level of leadership is positional leadership. Yet, I feel like that's where so many leaders stop, is in that positional place. And connecting your team, it's not just like, well, let's connect our team so that they're all happy and they never have to experience tension, and they never have to, they show up and we give them cereal in the morning and we wipe their little mouths and we send them off to work and they do good work. That's not what I'm talking about here. And yes, I do think leadership, and everyone will throw up in their mouth, but I'm not saying I'm just going to say it. I'm not even going to do it. I think leadership is parenting and parenting is leadership. And we have one of the most unparented generations that we've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And is it your fault that that's the case? Not even a little. It's all these other kids who had never had good parents. It's not your fault. But you got to deal with them. Okay, so they got to grow up sometime and they got to move into things. And so I do think, and that's not what this topic's about, but it is about helping them connect to the right things and helping them know what it is to belong, know what it is to find fulfillment and look for things that they do really well at and then excel in those things and grow in those things. So there is so much we're doing, and that's what culture building is. Okay, because and again, I think people way too much over expound what culture is and make it this monster, right? Peter Drucker says that cultural strategy for breakfast, and it makes it sound like it's this monster. Uh, Culture is alive, but it's more like a garden. You dig it, right? It's a garden. I can't not say that when I say it. But it grows, right? It grows in that manner. But culture, and hear me here, culture is the environment that does a few things. It supports the fulfillment of the vision and purpose. It supports the growth of the individual and team, and it supports the connection and belonging within the team. That's it. That's what we all want. We want a place like that. You don't have to make it perfect. You don't have to make it tensionless. In fact, I think tensionless environments are some of the worst environments, right? This is why only 5% of millionaire kids actually become millionaires, because the person who became a millionaire went through all these hard things to get there and said, I never want my kids to experience hardship. And so they kept them from it. And then those kids never came to that place. And not that that's what success is or the goal is in life. But my point is that when we protect from tension at all costs, we create a long life of tension.
Yeah.
And one that can't not be plagued by it. So I really think that we got to understand that this is culture building. And it can be done little by little, but it's got to support the fulfillment of the vision, the growth of the individual and the team, and the connection and belonging to the team. So everything we're going to talk about today, there are things that my company's done. Dustin's been a part of companies that have done a lot of these things too. And these are very exhaustive, and it's going to be overwhelming. And just like every parenting book maybe you've ever read, you're like, oh my gosh, I suck. Why can't I do all the, you know what? Do a little. That's the big thing. Do what you want for the one, what you want to do for all of them, right?
Do for few what you want for the many.
Thank you. Yeah, you said that better. Yeah.
That's okay.
Do for the few what you want to do for the many, and do things like in growth path. Like if you don't have to spend $50,000 on an outing or something like that. Like maybe you do if your company's gotten bigger, but don't start there. Figure out the things that people enjoy and connect to. And I'd say some of our best outings, and we'll talk about these here in a minute, were not the ones we dumped the most money into. They were ones where people were able to connect with people. And so that filter now, we're like, ooh, I guess that this outing we spent a lot of money on and, got all this food and did this thing. Y'all were kind of like broken into silos and couldn't hang out with one another. And that was a bummer for you. And I get that.
Yeah.
Can't do that. We got to make sure we filter through the right things. So anyway, sorry about that.
You're good.
Long-winded. Dustin?
No, I think I was just messaging somebody else in an organization that I help run this nonprofit foundation. And I was messaging them because we just did this like really raw, quick live stream last night where we just hopped on our Facebook page and just kind of gave an update as here's some things that are going on right now in the foundation, and here's some things coming up. And we got kind of like some really big gains out of that. We got some new donors. We got some people registered for some of our events for this year. And I messaged our team this morning and I was like, it amazes me that some of the smallest things see the biggest impact. Like that was just a very unorganized, kind of just thrown together thing that we did. And I think the same thing is applicable to parenting, and the same thing is applicable to leading your organization. Is the small things that you think that aren't going to matter usually end up mattering the most. And so what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover some some kind of more of the big rocks, right? Some things that are going to take a little bit more effort, but it's all about intentionality, right? But like it's about making sure that we have the intentionality to do these things on a regular basis. And so if you are a forgetful person, make sure you surround yourself with people who won't forget these things that we're sharing with you today. Or if you're a party of one or you don't really have the people around you that can do that, use technology to your advantage, set reminders, use your project management software to ping you every 3 months or whatever. But we are suggesting that these things that we give you, try to do at least one of them at least quarterly, which if you listen to one of our previous episodes I was just listening to recently, I learned that quarterly means every 3 months. No, just kidding. I knew that already, but it was funny that I acted like I didn't, right? Remember when I acted like I didn't know that?
That was so funny. You're like, oh, I don't know what that means.
Just kidding. I'm kidding, y'all. I know what quarterly means. Every 3 months. No, but you need to do these things as often as you can, and a good rule of thumb is to do these things quarterly. So if you did one a quarter for the whole year, you've got 4 connection pieces that you've created for your team, and that's what we're about today. So we're going to talk about connecting with
something real quick, actually, before we dive into that, because I think there's you said that it's about intentionality, and I don't think when I say we're all a family, that's not what I'm saying here, okay? Because like,
you're not Michael Scott.
If you could just kick your family out of the company, that would look different if in a family setting, that's not good. So this isn't the same, but I think there are aspects of leadership and parenting that use that word intentional that's so true. And it's not about doing the thing, right? Like, how many parents have we seen in ultra wealthy environments that gave their kids everything except the one thing the kids needed and wanted, and that was intentionality and attention, right? And focus to some degree. And I think like we've been able to take our kids to like Disney World, but that's not what they always talk about. They'll bring up, our kids will be like, remember that one time when we took sheets and put it in, built a tent from the ceiling and we all sat around the fire and watched, Brother Bear, we love that. That took nothing. That took a little bit of our time and intentionality and focus on making an experience for our kids in that moment. But what they got out of that wasn't a life of tensionless. It was our focus and our attention and our love towards them. And again, not trying to make this a big parenting thing, but we've now, as a parent, as a team of parents here, my wife and I have intentionality baked into our schedule with our kids. Mm-hmm. I know Dustin has intentionality. What is it? Like pizza night on Fridays? Isn't that your homemade pizza? Like,
pizza and movie night every Friday night.
Yeah. Like, why do I know that? Because he has created a lifestyle of intentionality towards that kind of stuff. And that speaks volumes, and it makes me want to be more intentional. And the more you do that with your team, the more your team will do that with their team up below them. And the more they'll do that, you see and it says in a Ponzi scheme, and I know that we could draw it up and it'll look just like what is that called? A triangle?
Oh, pyramid
scheme. Yeah. But landing the plane here, the intentionality will go way further, and it doesn't cost you near as much as you think.
Right. So we're going to spend the back half of this episode kind of going through 3 different categories of connection, type of interaction that you can build. And so we're going to talk about connecting to one another, like just on a personal level. We're going to talk about connecting your team to the vision and how they can be a part of the mission. And we're going to talk about connecting through growth and fulfillment, because these are all ways that if you can connect and grow in these areas together, then you will, again, begin to empathize more with them and thus increase your impact together. So let's start with connecting to one another. This is I think maybe this first one might even be from you, Blake. Is this do you guys do this, or am I imagining this first one that y'all actually do this?
The field day with the families?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. So we've done a bunch of different types of quarterly outings, and when we kind of set up this structure, and we did it really early. So like, if you're like, oh, but we just started, we knew really quick we needed to have intentionality to make sure we connected with our team long term. And so what we kind of did was create a structure. We said, okay, Q1, it's quarter one, 3 months.
Yep.
We're going to do a spring outing. So we just made these very seasonal in nature, right? Spring outing, summer outing, fall outing, winter outing. Our winter one was our big Christmas. We usually, that's if we're going to spend money on one, and we budget for this. We budget throughout the year building up to that. And, that's usually like a big old casino night, or we did like a big masquerade trivia night last time. It was crazy. It was pretty fun. But, we usually lead up to that. Our fall one is usually family. I don't know what it is about the fall and the turning from summer to fall, but it feels very family getting together around a campfire. And so we'll go out to different properties and just have a big bonfire, and we'll bring a grill. And our one of our project managers, he's amazing. He used to be a professional cook, so it's like on it. The fact that he just makes it all and it's glorious. So, on the summer outings, sometimes we like to add a little competition to it. So we'll do like a big fishing tournament or something. And then spring one, it's just we've gone and done a bunch of different things. We've gone and done paintballing against like a friendly rival electrical company. We just would hit them up and like, hey, you want to go play paintball? And they're like, yeah, we do. And so and it's focusing it around different things. We just had one last Friday actually, and it was. You ever heard of foaling?
Mm-mm.
It's football bowling.
That sounds tough.
It looks so easy because it's just bowling pins and a football, and all you got to do is throw it and knock down the pins.
Oh, so you throw it, you don't roll it.
You throw it.
Okay. See, I was imagining trying to roll a football straight, and that's where I was like, that sounds impossible.
That's not. Yeah, I think that might have been easier, to be honest with you. It is so hard. It is so easy to throw to someone
pins on the ground.
Chest height. Yep, they're on the ground.
Okay,
and so you're gonna like. Too. Oh yeah, it is not. It's not easy, but it was a blast, and we had a great time. So we like to structure things that way.
Yeah, it's natural to do it with the seasons. I think that's a very easy kind of plug and play. Hey, what do we all feel like doing? What do you like to do? What do you know that your team likes to do? Let's just get together and do that thing together during that season. One of my favorite things, I stole this from a church actually in Charlotte, North Carolina area. But they would, with their team, they did this thing called Meals on Wheels. Now, this isn't the thing where you're serving the elderly lunch and dinner, which is great. You should definitely do that. But this Meals on Wheels thing, they would say, all right, once a month, we're going to go out to eat together as a team, and we're going to ride together to that lunch. So if you can, try to carpool as best you can to the thing. The twist is that in January, they would go somewhere really close to the office, like maybe even across the street. And then every month throughout the year, they would get further and further away from the office. So by the time they got to December, they were probably driving 4 hours in the morning just to go eat lunch somewhere away, eat lunch, and then get in the car and drive back. And so it was cool. It was super cool. And I did this one time with an organization that I was with, and it was so much fun because by the end of it, you get road trip, and then you get new experiences, and we all know that like meals together always breed that sense of camaraderie and connection that you're looking for. Which leads me to my next one. This one's totally easy and free. Especially if you pack your lunch, but weekly lunches together. If you just say, hey, everybody, every Tuesday, there's no agenda for this whatsoever. We're not going to talk shop. We're not going to talk business. In fact, I've been a part of these before where you get shamed if you bring up business at the team lunch. So like you definitely don't want to bring up anything work related, and someone will yell out from the other side of the table, sounds like work talk. Is that work related? Whatever. And so we'd be like, put a pin in it. We'll talk about it later, kind of thing. But you can all bring your lunch. You can, go out and grab something and bring it back and just have one set location. or you're going to meet at every Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the day of the week works best for you and your organization to have weekly lunch together. What else you got, Blake, and connecting one another?
Yeah, so we one thing I would kind of jumping back to outings and stuff. I do think we've I think we use what we call them oil changes, which usually you're getting your oil changed quarterly, and so but the concept here that I think is important is that mentality of where this is maintaining. This is a machine that if you don't have this, what's going to happen is you're going to be affected. It's going to hurt. One of my suggestions here would be to reach out to the people who supply your stuff, your vendors who want to schmooze you and get you like, oh, let's go to this, let's go to this. A lot of our vendors have learned that like, yeah, I enjoy going to football games and all these things, but the way to my heart is through my team. And so the more you take care of my team, the better. And so we'll send sponsorships out. We send them to all of our vendors and say, hey, we're having this outing coming up. Here's how much we're looking for. If you're able to do it, we'll put your logo on it. We're going to bring you to it. Here's what you like. We just kind of make it a thing. And we have had great success having our vendors support and supply, like even our fishing tournaments. One vendor went out and bought like two 70-inch TVs. It was like, here's the winning team's prize. We wouldn't do that, but they did. And it added such value to our team who doesn't really get to experience our vendors, started to make that connection. And again, like even in sales and stuff, this is why salespeople like get to know people's families, is because that's what matters to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you focus on the family aspect, or you focus on the team, or you focus on that, you're going to get to the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, every time. That's a great tip. Let's move on to the next section of connecting. This is connecting to the vision and being part of the mission. These are some intentional, regular, again, maybe quarterly type of outings, if you will. And something we say outings, I mean, you can do these in your own space. Like some of the best team quote unquote outings I ever had was like, going to the lobby of the office and playing cornhole during lunch.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's, so you don't have to go out necessarily. We just, you know what we mean when we say outings. And so let's walk through some of these real quick. I know you have some good ones in here for us, Blake, for connecting to the vision and being part of the mission.
Yeah. So like we talked about with culture, like feeling connected to something isn't just at a surface level. And it just isn't at like, oh, I just met so-and-so and getting to know them. Like there is an aspect where you got to start digging into what's my purpose? How am I affecting the big term vision and mission here? I mean, that's the whole, like when JFK was walking through NASA that one time and he saw a custodian and he was like, oh, do you sweep floors here? And he said, no, my job's to get a man to the moon. He was connecting to the vision. He was connecting to the bigger picture of what was happening. And that's what it was so important, not just to like say, well, I'm sure they know what their purpose is. I'm sure they know. No, they don't. And even if they do, it's not a bad idea to remind them that they are critical to this. And the fear with so many business owners and leaders is, well, if I recognize them, they're going to be asking for more. Not like you think. They're going to, if anything, they're probably going to ask for more responsibility. Okay. So I would say connect them to the vision and how they affect the team. Let them know their number. What is their number and how is it like their data metric that they've got to hit? How does that affect the bigger picture? How does it affect the next person? Sometimes you don't have people connecting to the work because they don't know that it connects to another person. And you show them how it connects to a person, changes it. So ways we do this, we do on Mondays, we do a thing called a Monday kickoff. It's just a weekly pulse. We're just doing some kind of video where we get out there, we say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some highlights that just to be ready for them. Well, our team is, and I love saying this because I know so many people And you might be one who's like, well, see, we work as a business that we're not all under one roof. Neither are we. I have 10% of my team that is under one roof. The rest is out in the field. And how do you connect them? These types of things. This is how you connect them. Okay.
Yeah.
So that weekly pulse is just another intentionality to reach out to our team and say, hey, here's what's going on. What do we do during those times? We celebrate people. If someone did a shout out, like, hey, so and so did great here. Hey, way to go. We passed an inspection. We call it out. We finished a big phase on a project. We call it out. Like, we want to celebrate people as much as possible and let people know, like, you're doing really well. And here's how it's connecting.
Are you doing that over Zoom?
We do. Yep. So it's a visual one. We don't bring everyone in. We just do it over Zoom, or we do a video and we send it out.
Gotcha.
But the other part of that is we always want to have this mentality of safety in our industry. So we do a safety topic during that time too. It's just a good way to celebrate things, to make sure people right at the beginning of the week are safety conscious, because there's nothing more important than safety. And so, like, being able to call those things out. Quarterly, we do, and you've heard me talk about it before, Notes Day, which is something we got picked up off of Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, which is just the ability to bring people in, talk about the highs, the lows, the strengths, the weaknesses. What can we do better? What are the 3 things this quarter as a whole team we want to focus on? And then we figure those 3 things out, and then we break into groups and everyone comes up with solutions. And so it's not just like, oh, here are the field guys, here are the office people, here are the mid-level men. Nope. Everyone is just grouped together in different groups, and then we just get creative. And that's a time, in a big, like, in the beginning of Notes Day, it's like everyone's talking at the front of the room kind of thing. Like, I'm like, hey, what do we need to do here? And it's very, like, extroverted. Breaking out into groups helps the introverts get in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have like vision days where you're specifically working on team and company and department, maybe vision and what we're gonna do next and how we're gonna get there. It gives your time. So in most organizations, I was just reading this morning, right? There's a time for productivity and there's a time for creativity. And that doesn't mean that you can't be creative in your productivity, because that's usually the lane that I sit in most days. But it does mean that there's a time for heads down, kind of let's get the work done, work on in it, if you will, and then there's the work on it, right? And the work on it is where that kind of these vision days come into play, right, Blake?
Yeah, and those our vision days tend to be like once a year. Like, here is the big level vision that we're going to be doing. And then our Notes days help support that. We bring it back to the vision every time. Here's our direction. Here's where we're going. And the Notes days are, how do we as a full team build up to that vision? So it's looking out there. Then we have a lot of leadership team offsites that are usually they're usually Q4 to build up. What is our vision, right? Like, what are we going to do this next year? What are our plans? What are areas we struggled in? What were successes? And we look at that at a high level. We look at our financial aspect. We're digging in real deep on those things. And the big thing I think is important here on all stages of this, okay? As a leader, nobody will out vulnerable you. They won't do it. Does not roll off the tongue. I hear it. But nobody will get more vulnerable than you, okay? Yeah. You need to get real with people. You need to be transparent about things, uncomfortable. And when they see you be uncomfortable in these things, they're going to feel like, this is a place I can get uncomfortable to. And this is a place that I'm willing to, because I see myself as a part of this longer term than just a paycheck for tomorrow. So that's one of the big, like, hey, keep this in mind as you look at all these things. They're great. But if you're not vulnerable in all of these things, and if you are a no monster, it won't work monster, this won't work for you. If you are the key to your the success of your company, you're going to be a company of one. Okay.
Yeah. For sure. So let's get into our final area of connecting, and that's connecting to growth and fulfillment. And these are times for us to actually kind of grow and learn together, and to grow and learn individually. The time for the coaching, the time for the one-on-ones. Like there's just as much connecting in those, right, Blake, as these kind of full-on outings. And I will say all of these things that we're about to list too for you are not, again, you don't have to do it in the same place. Mix it up. You don't have to do it at the office. You don't have to do it away from the office. You don't have to do it in person. You don't have to do it on Zoom. Like, just change it up and keep it fresh. Will always help kind of revitalize any type of regularity that may become stale over time.
Yeah, for sure. And the other part of this, like, why help them connect to growth and fulfillment? Because one of the top reasons that people leave a company is because they say it's not a place they can grow.
Yep.
And you know that's not true. Even if you don't offer any of these things, you're like, man, there are so many ways to grow. But they don't know that. They can't
Yep.
see what you can see. Everyone else is not getting the vision from behind your brain and inside your brain looking out. They don't get the same vision you've got. Okay.
Yeah.
So because of that, if you don't tell them or you don't show them, they won't know. And that's on
Yep.
you. So this is where the best way to do this is to have leadership development. It's like you're like, wow, where do I start? Start at your leadership team. Okay. Because another reason people leave is managers, right? So why not
Mhm.
focus on that team and develop that team and help them build out and become more empathetic, but also how to hold accountable in that same time. Like there's so much growth that has to be done at a personal level rather than just at a technical level. The further you go into responsibility, and so
Yeah.
leadership development's important, but the technical is important too. Like doing some positional training programs, build them, create video based learning for your team as you're doing it. If you're in a position and you're growing, especially for the small business owner here, you're growing at the beginning and you're like, man, I really need someone to do this stuff. Start building the course, start
Yeah.
building what it looks like for someone else to walk in that role. And just record yourself. Get Zoom and just record you. You don't have to invite anybody to it. Just record you, do the thing, and then start building the course for your next team. And then
Yeah.
call it a positional training program. Hey, this is how to do a P&L, how to read a P&L well. Having those things is really important.
Hmm.
Coaching is crucial. It's getting some one-on-one with someone, and it doesn't have to be you. I love coaching, so it is me a lot of times. But if you're like, man, that's just not my strength, that's okay. Find someone who it's their strength and put them in that position to do coaching or help downstream coaching. Find a model. A lot of times it's because people don't have a model or some kind of understanding of what needs
Yeah.
to be said. Coaching's just asking really good questions, being quiet, and then
Yeah.
giving sound advice from experience too. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I recently, I've been diving into a lot of this. What's the difference between coaching and consulting, or coaching and really kind of counseling, really, even sometimes. And I think that's a tactic or a tool that we miss a lot as leaders, is that there are opportunities to counsel and there's opportunities to coach,
Mm.
right? The coach necessarily isn't always telling you exactly what to do. The coach is training you so that when you have to make a decision, you can make the decision on your own without having
Mm.
someone standing there telling you this is what you should do right now. But
That's
sometimes you're at a crossroads and you have no idea what to do next. And that's where you really need the consulting or the counseling aspect of the leader to kind of step in and say, hey, I can see that you're in over your head. I've been there. It's
mm.
nothing to be ashamed of. Here's how we get out of it. And I will help you get out of it. So there's a difference there. And sometimes of like, saying coaching kind of is that ahead of time training kind of deal.
Yep.
Whereas the consulting and the counseling is more of like, hey, I'm going to help pull you up out of this hole that you fell in or may have dug for yourself.
Mhm.
Either way, we're here together and we're going to get out of it together. And speaking of together, I think one of the things that you can do to connect to growth and fulfillment, this is one of my favorite things to do, is to learn together. I love to learn. Blake and I both are heavy learners, readers, all conferences, all these things. So attend a conference together, attend a trade show together, attend. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be online. Read books together. And if you're like, well, my team, they're not good readers or they're illiterate, then listen to it. You know what I mean? Like, you can listen to books now. Like, it's a thing. It's been a thing for a long time, and it's more and more readily available now than it ever has been before. And something else too that I think is wildly is something that is a high impact kind of takeaway is master classes. Now you can actually use the actual masterclass platform. We're not endorsed by them. I love it because I learn things all the time from that I never would be able to hear from otherwise from these people who have mastered their craft, right? But in your field, there are guaranteed people that are putting out some sort of quote unquote masterclass on a regular basis. And so being able to find those and share those with your team, not just sending them to your team and go, hey, watch this and come back with 3 points that you got from it. No. How about like sit down and watch it together and then ask questions afterwards? That's part of that coaching that we said as well.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, kind of look for opportunities as well to help them in their growth of like them as a person too.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying we are family here kind of thing. I'm just saying like parenting is guiding in a lot of ways. And one aspect of that could be like personal finance. Our whole system has dropped the ball on this one. Mm-hmm. High schools expected the parents were going to teach them, but parents expected that the high schools were going to teach them. High schools said, okay, they'll learn it in college. And college said, sweet, we got their money. Don't tell them what an expense is because they're going to hate this. Don't tell them what interest is. And I'm not trying to make college evil here. I'm just saying like the whole system, nobody's teaching it. And so then they get out and they get into these mentalities like having, oh, it's only $9.99 a month. That's great. They have 40 of them. That's a problem. And who's teaching this stuff? It could be you. Here's why I think it's even advantageous for employers to teach this stuff is because more often than not, when they're bad at finance, they think that there is only one lever to fix that. And that's to increase pay.
More. Yeah.
I need more. They don't understand expenses. They don't understand living within their means. They don't understand what life insurance is. They don't understand what health insurance is. They don't understand premiums. They don't understand any of this stuff. They don't know what's important and not important.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you don't want the prime time ability to help them understand that?
Yeah. It's teaching discipline. Really, at the end of the day, right? Is like, hey, more is not necessarily always the answer. Sometimes it's self-control. Sometimes it's discipline, and you want a team of people who are disciplined and have self-control. So that's our time today on connecting with your team. Next week, we're going to be back on episode 38. We'll be in the month of April now, and we are going to look at the speed of the leader. So we talked about the team today and connecting with the team. Sometimes the best thing you can do as a leader is to kind of retreat and do some self-growth. And so that can impact your culture in major ways. So we're going to get into that next week on the Culture Base. We are so glad that you were here today. We hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week on the Culture Base podcast.